Great presentations aren't remembered just for what happens on stage. On today's show, we explore the invisible work before, during, and after a presentation that quietly determines whether a talk is merely good or truly memorable. And we've got someone who spent 2 decades on the event and conference side and now lives on the other side of the microphone, offering a rare full circle perspective on what audiences and organizers really notice. You ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Michelle Griffin, is author of 2 personal branding books to help brilliant yet overlooked people stand out. She's a TEDx speaker on the power and payoff of putting yourself out there, and she hosts 2 branding podcasts with 250 plus combined episodes. I'm going to let her take it from here because she'll do a better job of telling you her journey than I will. Welcome to the show, Michelle. The floor is yours.
Rob, it is good to be here. I think this is like 90 days and counting the days till we finally get to be here.
Got it.
So it's a privilege and honor to talk to you all things speaking, presentations, and making things memorable.
Well, I appreciate that. And we will make it memorable. What I love about your background is the fact that, I'm kind of a one-trick pony. I speak to meeting planners, but I've never been a meeting planner. I will tell you, and we did, Michelle and I talked about a couple months ago, 2, 3 months ago, and I immediately wanted to get Michelle on the call because, on the show, because I really learned the hard way. You better play nice with the meeting planner. That's one of your bosses in the room, except they don't act like a boss. They're very quiet, but they're taking notes. From your vantage point, why do you think so many speakers focus almost completely on the performance and kind of miss the things around it?
That's a good question. That's a great question. And that's why we're here because, I spent 2 decades. I wasn't a meeting planner. I was executive director, of professional association, but I had a meeting planning team and the meeting planner. We talk like almost every day. We go on site visits together. We vet the speakers at breakouts. So I was in the mix of it all. And I even like to say it gives me even another perspective because from an organizational standpoint, right? So yeah, the meeting planner and I were hand in hand with the team. But the problem is you can hire sometimes, and we did some really top names, like name brand, top of the line, top brand, and they just fell flat. Like their name is all they got them in the door, but the experience maybe before, not all of them, some before, during the whole process, dealing with them, even after. Sometimes it was a letdown. But then there were some that were really phenomenal from A to Z. And that clued me in early on and what it takes. It's not just showing up on a stage, it's an entire experience. And that's what I try to live with my speaking now as well.
Yeah, I see some of those people because I'm kind of a meat and potatoes trainer. I've been doing it for decades, but sometimes the celebrities will go right before me or right after me, so I'm kind of in the green room with them, and it's amazing because it really I've always tried to figure out what is it exactly that separates these people because some of them are fabulously successful and incredibly humble and really nice people, and others really successful and so not humble about it. And I don't want to name any names. I was actually arguing because I think one of them's no longer alive, a guy that I really had some issues with, but it was a sports personality. Let's just leave it at
Mhm.
that one. Former coach. See, I'm getting closer.
Yes.
But they sort of maybe they're just in the business too long, kind of lost the humility part of it, and it's frustrating.
We had a lot of sport. Our audience was traditionally a little bit more male dominated when the association first started. So there was a lot of um, sports and male dominated speakers and that thing. And so I saw a lot of it. And sometimes they would just kind of go and auto repeat. But, even some of the up and coming ones we did, I could see the enthusiasm and the experience. There were a couple that we brought back over the 2 decades I was there 2 to 3 times because they dropped such an incredible experience. And we can get into the before, during, and after in a minute, but it's so much better to create that experience, especially now, fast forward with AI, content as a commodity. What we're selling and what we're sharing on a stage is information. I like to say we need to make it an experience, a transformation, a connection to the audience, because you can Google anything now. And I get it, we have different perspectives, but it's truly a wow factor when people feel like the famous quote, it's how people remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, even back then, I clued on to that fast.
Yeah. You hit the words, this kind of an auto and repeat. I think that's one of the most challenging things for a speaker because a lot of times we're doing that. This isn't the first time we're doing our talk. Now, if it's a smart speaker, there's all sorts of pockets in there that allow for a form of improv, an
Mhm.
audience participation piece, things like that. But for me, I've always kind of gotten into almost competitively the challenge of telling a story for its 1000th time and telling it like I've never told the story before. That doesn't depress me. That kind of excites me. Now, if you said you're going to tell that story to this audience who's seen you 1000 times tell the
Mhm.
story, okay, now as my dad would say, I'll give you something to cry about. But I've never really been that concerned, and yet you can see I think it's one of the first cards that are laid on the table almost when you can see a speaker not having a good day, when you can feel that auto repeat. They've lost that freshness.
And there's so many ways to take your story and customize it. That's why I do that invisible work now myself, like a detective, before, during, and after. And I can't remember what speakers, there were, thousands over the years. I just remember one in particular. I can't remember the topic, but he just came in and let's just say he sprinkled and seasons his entire presentation all about our industry, all about, and I'm not just saying general stuff, he did his homework. He got into the thick of it and he knew the funny nuances. He knew who was the good guys, the bad guys. He knew everything. It's like he was interviewing for a job. He knew so much. And I was just floored. And it made you lean in even more because he was talking to you. He got you. He got our industry. And combined with his own stories and stuff, that's how we felt he was so relatable. So that is one thing. I don't know if people do enough research, and I don't have to say in like 2 seconds on a website. I'm talking about take the time to really be the detective and find all the nuances that are going to help you stand out that way.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm an open book on this podcast. I would probably say of if you gave me a rating in 25 categories, that would probably be my weakest. Now I do my homework, but I
Mhm.
am the guy that frequently will look on the website. I'm usually talking about sales. So I already know that whatever they want to sell is usually sitting right there. If it's a good web developer, they'll be showing me the problem. If it's a bad web developer, they'll be showing me the solution and I'll back it up the problem. But I'm outing myself right now for people who are listening, tell you that I've convinced myself that's what I need. I've got just enough product to be dangerous. Hey, don't want to pretend like I'm a subject matter expert because that won't work. So I'm living in a nice little middle area. And I'm looking you in the eye and telling you, I think that's part of the lie that I'm telling myself. And I've got to do, we all have to do better jobs that if I'm telling you this, that then I'm just looking at a lot of speakers and I am doing my homework, but not to the level you just described. And that's why you're here because we fool ourselves into believing, let's not know too much. I don't, I'm not here to teach them about product. Yeah, well, that's a far stretch from what you just said, which is spend some time, learn the nuances, learn some names, learn some hot buttons in there, enough to be dangerous. We have to do a better job. Have to.
Well, I'll give you some real practical things because I love to
Good.
educate, empower, and give tools,
I'm your
that
student. Let's go.
yeah. So, LinkedIn is a big part of what I do in my speaking, training, advising. I wrote the LinkedIn branding book, and I have one of my co hosts, one of my podcasts is the co hosted LinkedIn branding show for going on our fifth season. Last week, we just kicked off. So, if you're looking like Michelle, well, Michelle and Rob, how do I do this? I need to get better. I'm going to give you a tip. LinkedIn is your mecca. LinkedIn is where you can go and get the front row seat because you can go look at their top level executives. You can in their pages, the company pages, the news. You can look at the dialogue. You can pick up stuff. You can pick up stuff to customize your speech just looking at the dialogue in between people. It's fascinating. So that's one area. Okay. You're going to want to go into LinkedIn and really just start following them. And most people get booked out months and months and months, right? So you have some runway for this. So you can really, now, I mean, I'm not saying spend your entire life on this, but the work that you do here is going to absolutely propel you on that stage and, at the event and everything. So I would first, I'm not going to jump too far, but first get on LinkedIn and do all that. Start the reconnaissance there.
Perfect. And I'm just counterbalancing that with if you hear a Rob Jallis tell you, listen, you want to know about that company, but not too much. Because you don't want to walk up there going, I'm going to tell you how we make cars here at Toyota. Uh, that is part of the lie speaking. In other words, boy, I did a nice job of defending myself, but who's really doing that? I think on LinkedIn, and I'm active on LinkedIn. Most of us are active on LinkedIn in business. So wonderful, great idea there. And I don't think it's disrupting the apple cart here of, hey, don't learn too much. We're not. It's the little nuances that really help. Okay, that's a before. Give me another before that a speaker should be looking out for before they take that stage.
Well, another before thing too, because when I work with my events and things, associations, groups, I like to put in my package that, and this is just me, I'm just sharing how I do it. Sometimes I'll do a welcome video or I'll do a post. I've, 20,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. I'm very active. So a lot of times I'll say, I'm going to be posting about it, tagging you all. So that generates a lot of interest. And so you're generating interest in yourself and what you're bringing to transform them and entertain or motivate, whatever. So I'll have some kind of, and I'm excited because it's helping me brand myself. It's helping them tell their story, get promotion for the event, all the things. So there's a trifecta there. So I like to post on LinkedIn about it at some point, sometimes twice, whatever, or share their stuff. Like I get pretty active in that. And that goes a long way. That goes a long way. Like, thank you.
Yeah,
So I know what it's
Michelle.
like to put events on.
Yeah, let me clarify that. So you're actually putting information about that event up that you're speaking on before you even go out and deliver it. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of my before and after, my reconnaissance and then my active promotion. So, depending on when all this gets hired, usually closer because it makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So I'm promoting their event, promoting me, promoting everything. So yeah, they love it. I'll either share it or create my own or sometimes both, but that's part in my package that I'm,
yeah. Mm. And smart. And whenever I hear something like that, I'm always thinking, which client is going to not like that? Okay. I
yes.
liked having Michelle, but the whole posting thing before she even spoke, that's one of those things where the only argument could be, um, how far would that move the needle? And Michelle, you don't have to even answer that, and I'll answer it for you. If it moves it 1 degree, I'm on board. Why would we choose not to do something that we know will move the needle, will help help promote this event? Love it. All right. Okay, you're on
Yeah.
a roll.
Because
Yeah,
I'm hired too a lot because I bond with them instantly because I tell them I used to put on for 2 decades big conferences, big and small all over. So I get, I speak their language, so I know on both sides. That's what helps me. Anyway, so we're going to promote. We're doing all this stuff. We'll get to the event now. I'm a conference geek, junkie. I like to put them on. I like to attend. I like to speak at them. So it is for me. And I know everyone, especially if you're speaking, not everyone's schedule's tight. I try to get there as early as I possibly can with my schedule because I'm going to, at least a day, obviously a day before, but sometimes sooner. And I just go and this is back in my meeting plan days. We'd go talk to I'd go walk the entire site, right? Get to know every detail, observe, and you pick up clues, you pick up events, you meet people, because that's going to come in later. How you can sometimes, depending on the event, call out so and so, hey, remember when we did that or something like that. And that personalizes, in the context of your speech, of course. So I get to know and pick up a lot of clues on site as well. Okay. And also start cementing a really good relationship with the event staff. And that goes a long way too for future bookings.
Yeah. Now, yeah, believe me, I wouldn't be in business if I was doing everything crummy. This I'm good at. Okay. This I know about. I always laugh because when the bureaus book me out, it's always in my contract. You've got to be there 1 hour before the presentation, which is laughable because I'm there a day before the presentation
Yes.
and usually in the morning because I want that morning flight. I don't want to screw around and start pushing this thing into the afternoon. So never going to have an argument there. And I mean when that AV team starts hitting it at 6:30, quarter of seven in the room, then not an hour before. So we're okay on that one. Here's what I want you to help me with.
Mm-hmm.
Help me with dinner. I struggle with dinner with the clients.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common thing that speakers will frequently, if they're there the evening
Mm-hmm.
before, and most of them should be, the pros will
Mm-hmm.
be. Part of that package is, oh, good. Well, we're getting together. We're having this little thing. Love to have you come to that dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that. It's I feel like I'm going to somebody's high school reunion, and I didn't go to that high school. Not to mention the fact where I could push my peas around the plate. Except not only did I not go to the high school, but I'm supposed to be the entertainment, so there's no pushing the peas around the plate. So I find ways to tend to not go to those dinners, and I know I should. Am I missing out on something, or should I man up and get to the dinners that we're getting invited to?
I think it depends because we had many events that we invited our speakers, and a lot of times it was our board meeting, our board dinner. It was fancy board dinner with their spouses, significant others, and that could draw into hours. And
Mm,
sometimes, yes, depending on the setting, it could be like you're just sitting to someone you have nothing in common. I get that. I'm the most extroverted person like you, but even in context, that can just drag on. So I'd maybe ask a little bit about what that is and just kind of feel if you get a feel and you like the industry or it's, so I think it's a context thing. If it's like an event, more of a cocktail party, I think that's a great way to do that. But just get the clue as much as you can. And I never like to lock myself into it, like without more information. So I think find out and see if it fits because you can make tremendous connections. You never know who's going to be at that dinner too, who could
yeah,
hire you later on. So,
yeah. I get to dinners when my bookings are down, but when my
yes,
bookings are up, and
exactly.
I'm
There's a barometer right there.
yeah, except if I was writing a book on this, there's no way you and I would co-write a book and say, but if your bookings are up, don't go.
Yeah,
Um,
no, we
I,
wought say that.
yeah, it's my kryptonite. I am a card-carrying extrovert, but not at those types of events. I'd much rather just be, watching ESPN and maybe get a little room service or bring something in from outside. But listen, this is a business, and
Yes,
we're blessed to have been invited to this event.
yes.
The cocktail party is much easier. Go to the cocktail party and probably the dinner too. All right, let's shift it. And I'm going to do something sneaky. I'm going to go first. I'm going to ask you some of the things now we're delivering the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Some things we've really got to keep an eye on. I know our content's great and we love to hear ourselves speak, but things that are going to annoy either the meeting planner or maybe the client. The reason why I'm going first is because there's a really good one I want to get at, and,
Okay,
and
what
so
is
I'm
it?
stealing timing.
Yes.
We can't go. I don't. I'm not even a fan of going 5 minutes short. You're paid a significant amount. We don't go short and we don't go long. We
Mm-hmm.
nail that time. They've got a full day of events, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how thrilled the audience looks. We're not getting invited back if we don't honor the time that we're given. To me, that's a crucial piece. I told you I'd get a good one. All right. Give us some more because I'm assuming we're not arguing about that one.
Are you talking about with the speakers? Absolutely. Or the meet and greet. We'll hire a lot of them to do their books or meet and greet. They show for 2 seconds, they leave, stay as
Right.
long as you've been allotted. We've had people, they just like, well, I gotta go, sorry, and our people are just dying. They presumably have more time. They don't have to like bolt out the door, make sure you have enough time. But we had people who were so excited about this one speaker. His life had been made into a movie. He was a big deal. And, he absolutely just kind of bolted after less time on that. So
Mm,
honor all the add-ons you've promised,
Yeah.
because that sometimes is even more of a letdown when people are bring the books, are so excited, take a picture or whatever, and you just let that down. And that puts a dagger through our heart, right? So
Yeah.
that is another one. Going back to timing too, going back to what you earlier said, I can remember having heart panics because we had a few speakers over the years like, where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Like we had not seen them, we couldn't get in touch with them. So it's like, do not show up 1 hour early. I don't know. That needs to be rewritten in speaker bureau language. That gives
Yeah.
people palpitations.
Right.
That's unprofessional. No,
Right.
not 1 hour. Heck no. It's that, and just, maybe kind of going off color. We've had a few going rogue on us. We had a few, and that was early on, and I think the industry's changed and all, and just kind of going off topic a little or something, but just stuff that I think our audience has common sense on. Honestly, though, I mean, these are the bad apples. But
Right.
I like to say everyone listening here is so professional and would never do that.
You'd think so, but I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, back to our language. Really, if you have a beer with me on the weekend, you'll realize that I have the language. I speak all sorts of languages. Okay. But boy, in front of an audience, I am extremely cautious, not just about cursing,
Mhm.
but about things that might make, I mean, I can't even say it on this show, so I'll give you the initials of it. But GD uh, is worse than an F bomb for many
Mhm.
people, and and a lot of people they're just kind of moving fast and loose. It's if you have 200 people out there, it might be just five of them, okay, that were offended by it, but horrifically offended by it, and they're not going to be casual about their offense to it. And so, language. I'm always surprised when I hear speakers cursing on stage, and it's just something. It's like I was trained at Xerox. We don't curse ever, ever. It's just not in our language, and yet it's out there. Do you remember a speaker named Nick Murray? I'm actually going to name a name because I don't think Nick's with us
That name
anymore.
is, yes, does sound
Big
familiar.
financial guy and very successful. So Nick, if you're still here with us, you're the guy. But love to curse. And in financial meetings, it seems like if there is one meeting you can kind of get away with it, that's probably the one. And yet I know for a fact, speaking to some of the meeting planners, other people were very offended by it. But
Mhm.
it was just that was part of his shtick. It was a cigar, yep,
Yep.
and cursing. I'm just not a fan of that. Can't be.
And I get it. We accidentally do it, but yeah, you got to tighten up. But those are some of the high level things that I remember and that made a lasting impression, and the ones we didn't bring back, right? Because they just, gave us heart attacks
Right.
and let us down. Sometimes their stuff was good, but just their behavior was horrible. And
Yeah.
that I don't care how great you are on stage, but if your persona, the way you treat people, and us, our board, our clients, attendees, everybody. Sometimes they were ugly to the AV people or the meeting planner. And I'm not saying everyone, but you've got to treat everybody across the board. You just never know who you're talking to sometimes at a conference as well. So I don't want to bring up the bad stuff because there was that just by far, it was such a 1% thing. There were so
Yeah.
many amazing
All right.
speakers.
Well, let's get at, and some of these we do unconsciously. Okay.
Hmm.
Like, all right, we did before, we sort of we're a little bit during right now, and after. I was here going, I'm going to go first again. I went, wait a minute, who's the guest on this show? You are. So I've got a really good after one, but I'm not leading with it. I'm going to let you lead. We've just finished the presentation, and yeah, in the spirit of what you just said, give me one good and one not so good. One thing we probably do would be really smart to do, and one thing you really don't want to do when you finish that presentation.
Oh, I would say run off the stage and, be there. I close it down as much as I can, schedule permitting. And I remember, again, even if we didn't contract a meet and greet or a book signing or whatever with these people, the ones that were so good and you felt that connection and our people time permitting, or the ones that would skip the break to talk to the speaker, it made such a tremendous thing when they would sit there and talk. And that's what I do, schedule printing, which I usually always have enough time. I'll take pictures. I was like, let's take a picture for LinkedIn because they know I have LinkedIn on my brain all the time. And so they love that. I'm like, here's this, tag that, or let's take a picture, be sure to tag me. So that's a kind of an in that continues into the after. So definitely be available if you can, because remember, you're creating connection. Your content is okay. It's great. I know it changes lives. You put some connection on that, which people are craving more than ever. You're going to be so memorable to not only the attendees, and remember, they do feedback. The attendees are asked for feedback as much as the meeting planners. So we would get our feedback like, please bring the speaker back. We love this speaker. We loved him. And sometimes we would do it because it was a crowd favorite. So you have a chance to be that memorable, repeatable by your actions in the moment and, during the event.
Yeah. And I think you hit it. I just want to reinforce it. And we're talking real world here, folks. Listen, there's stuff we could write in an article for you, and this sounds easy, such as don't finish the presentation and fly out of the room. But the reason why we're talking about it is, of course, you wouldn't, unless you booked a flight that's a little bit tight, because
Yes.
you didn't want to wait 3 more hours for the next nonstop to Pico, wherever you're going. So there's always the temptation there. And that's what I mean. The real world is, I'll only do it this one time, but I'd really love that nonstop. I think we have to remember that, some of the clients, they don't realize that this is 2 full days and that, they're
Yes.
always thinking, we only got this guy for an hour and how much are we paying him? But there's a lot going into it. Why would we want our final view in front of them when they go, I think I like him. Yeah, I was really like him. He was so wonderful. And then pew, out like a rocket before he could do anything. We basically did an Olympic exercise, jumped off the balance beam and stumbled into the front row. It's a temptation. One that I
It
have to
really
watch.
is. But that's why, for my lens and why you brought me on, I want to bring all the nuances that I saw
Mm,
and that I try to, not do because it was such a letdown. I can just remember these people, our audiences were so excited. It's like having a little kid, like, will you sign my autograph? And then the sports hero just runs away, in the locker room. And it's such a letdown. I can remember some of their faces. That was a couple of times, but my God, here we are talking about all these years later. So don't
yeah,
be that person if you
yeah,
can,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I will say the good news is I'll tell you one no-brainer for me, which is virtual. When we're doing a virtual
Yes.
presentation, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I'm gonna throw it out there again. I actually stole this one from Howard Stern, uh,
Mm,
who I don't even know if he really has it anymore, but for a while there, he had something called an after show. And the
mm.
after show was for those that could you still want to hear more. He wasn't even there, but we may have the guest back and this and that. And the after show virtually for me is at least we're not running to the airport, we're not catching a flight. Why wouldn't we say wonderful and thank you for your time, assuming that we're the only speaker? Okay. Uh, I'm going to stay here and answer every question there is. And I'll even get into I have a client who stories, where people want to come up and basically get some ideas. But virtually, this is a very easy move and a really nice way of, in a sense, virtually not running out of the room.
I love that idea of an after show for a virtual. Absolutely love that. One other little thing I would say is for virtual and on site, as much as I can in the context if I'm doing a keynote or workshop, I always try to have something left over for them, either through a QR code or hand out a tangible thing they can take and go search for to keep me top of mind and to keep dropping value. I like to over deliver and just drop little nuggets, Easter eggs, and the things I do in my whole experience that sometimes I never told you you were getting and you're going to love getting or your audience. So I like to do Easter eggs as much as possible. So
Yes.
everything's an experience for me, right?
Right.
Everything. I'm branding, I'm experience. When an event, you know, past 2 decades in events, and I think they're the best, especially now with AI, they're the best form of enticing an audience, making memories. And, for speakers have that power now. So this is such a fascinating conversation, but we're leading to the last part, Rob, which is the after, kind of like the after show. You kind of queued us up there.
Good. All right. Oh, and by the way, I'm just throwing this out to you. I've got your next book title. All
What is
right.
it?
Yes. Well, it may be used, so we'll have to find a version of it, but over deliver. I think that's a
Mm.
theme about you. And listening to you for 25 minutes now, really every category that you speak about, you're basically figuring ways to over deliver.
Yes.
And again, where is that going to get us into trouble? Nowhere. No one has ever complained to me and said, "You gave us too much. What were you thinking about?" So,
And you have
okay,
to systemize it. So you're
right,
not, creating more time and bottleneck, but I have systemized ways to over deliver. Like, so I just go and, get it off the back shelf. I've already had to create it. So it's not like I'm doing time and then you have team members helping you and stuff. So yeah, it's good, but I love it. I'm wondering, and I have not read the book, but I think there's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality or something. Have you heard of that book? It's about the guy, some restaurant. I started reading, I need to actually read it. And that might be that's always been, even before in college and high school and grad school, I've always been obsessed with really good customer service back then. Now it's customer experience.
right.
So I think
Yeah,
that all adds up. So great
yeah.
tip, Rob.
Well, I tell you, I sift through. I will tell you that I focus very hard on the delivery. It's why I love this
Mhm.
conversation because let's pretend Rob's a pretty good speaker. Many good speakers will 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 believe that the delivery will carry the day,
Yeah.
that I can do this and not put up with that nonsense. And I'm not going to that dinner. And I might leave a little early, but boy, they're going to love that hour. And they will. But again, they won't love me stumbling off the balance beam at the end. And they won't love the personalities that I stepped on before I got on that stage.
Yes.
So let's over deliver the back end of this now. Okay.
All right.
We're
So
finishing. Give me some thoughts.
and I just want to make this statement because I know I sent in the pitch that I sent you months ago. I am not saying forget your presentation. That of course that's table stakes, right? That is a no brainer. So I'm very focused on that too. But I'm just thinking of all the other ways you can just make this a beautiful layer cake.
Yep.
So after is a continuation. So you're staying around a little bit, taking pictures. Now, one of the things I love doing, of course, you follow up, send them things. I'll send their when I send them a thank you, I'll sometimes send them something they can use for their audience or whatever context. I'll post about it on LinkedIn again, and that goes a long way too. And then I keep following up with them, not crazy, but I won't just ghost them, like I'll follow up with some of the wonderful ones that I had such an experience and just say, hey, here's some new stuff I'm working on, or I thought you might enjoy this. Continue the relationship. And I've been booked over and over again in some entities. Sorry, the sun's in weird shade, but I've been asked to come back because I've had such a follow through, top of mind. I'm top of mind. They don't just forget you. Now I know that you cannot be booked every year by the same thing. I'm talking about in different contexts or a couple years later. So I think that is another consideration speakers could think about to keep it as a relationship, not a
Yeah.
transaction.
And Michelle, if I could jump in on that, really the obsession doesn't have to be get booked by that company next year. We all want to, but quite frankly, you could be the best speaker they've ever seen in their life. They're not going to repeat the speaker. They have a process too. The reason why we're having the conversation is you have 200 other prospects in that audience. You don't
Yes.
know who's leaving, going into another company, going here, there. The single biggest question been asked, for delivering for 33 years on my own is, where are you getting the gigs? Where are the gigs? And there's the conversation about, well, when I started blank. But if you've done it long enough and you've taken care of the audience, I get the gigs because my audience keeps moving around. If they're not, they don't stay with the company. Some of them do. And some of them will move into power. And 5 years later, want you back because they saw something, but it's the audience that's doing it, not really necessarily the planner or the
Exactly.
person
And
who hired you.
associations in the world I lived in, we'd have in our, niche industry, we'd have people from companies galore. And that's, they're always having their own events. Another thing too, be nice to everybody. I picked up, started conversations with people in the elevator, just being friendly, talking about the weather or something. You just never know who you're talking to. And you never know where that conversation could lead to perhaps a book or an interest or a workshop or something. So I say have this persona everywhere you go. Don't just be the grump or don't talk to anyone because you just never know who's at one of these conferences that could change your next booking or workshop or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And to your point, and we'll talk podcaster to podcast host to podcast host. I get a lot of guests. You get a lot of guests. You got over 250 shows. You've been doing this for a while. Everybody looks good coming in. But one of the things that we're looking for is, would you share it? Would you like it? Would you comment on it? And you'll be tagged in it. I'm always shocked at how many people say, of course, and don't. It means something when you do, we don't forget it. So why wouldn't it mean something to the company that you're tagging them, you're showing up? Again, who said, oh, I liked her except for that, right? So it matters. We see it.
We see it, and you never know in LinkedIn. When you're in the feed, you'll say, Michelle Griffin likes this or commented on this. So the magic of LinkedIn, the algorithm we can't control. When you're tagging, liking, resharing, that gets thrown in a feed, and you just never know who's going to see it. I've had clients come to me because they found me in the feed, just someone else tagged me or liked my thing. And so that's why I love to go on LinkedIn. That's where business conversations happen. That's where other meeting planners, event planners, all the things are happening there. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you come to this watering hole, if you
Yeah.
will?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just never know.
Yeah, I'm coming up my last question for you mercifully because I hope people will not only listen to this podcast, but take a look on YouTube because you'll see Michelle is soldiering on. She has a son that is just, and this is the SUN son, that is just pelting her. It's hitting her from all angles right now. And yet you're soldiering on. It's fun to
I know
watch
I
you.
should have pulled that thing in Florida where we are. I look like a ghost right now. So
I
thank
got 30. You got 30 more seconds. Hold it together.
you. Okay.
Son, leave her alone right now. If somebody was going to adopt one idea, and you've given us plenty of thoughts before we get up there, even thoughts when we're up there, thoughts when we finish, thoughts. I've got thoughts on this one. If you were going to cherry pick and say, I'll give you of all those thoughts, if you were going to take just one, do this one, which would it be?
I think set the tone early. I
Yeah,
mean, I get it. You're going to have constraints before, after. Set the tone before.
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
then maybe the second would set the tone after. So if you can do, I know I gave you a lot. You can pick and choose. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, start with the thing that you're going to set the tone right, kick it off the expectations, and then maybe land it really well too. So you can't possibly do, can do, or want to do all, but pick the beginning and the end. And because that's going to naturally progress into favorable impressions of you. And then when in doubt, just over deliver on something.
Ah, there's that over deliver again. It keeps finding you. Yes, over deliver. Both of us would love the first email that says, I got in trouble because I over delivered. It's not going to happen.
But no one
So,
ever.
no one ever. All right, listen. How do people get a hold of you? That's an important question.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on the show. It has
You
been
bet.
an honor. I would love to hear from your listeners. First of all, connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me you heard me here, watch me. I would love to connect. Michelle B. Griffin. I go by Michelle B, stands for branding, michellebgriffin.com. Because and that's a whole nother topic you might want to bring me back in the future about AI visibility. We need to be differentiated. When people are looking us up, there's a lot of Michelle Griffin. So go to michellebgriffin.com. You get my books, my podcasts, my content, all the things. So look forward to connecting with your listeners there.
Perfect. Yeah. And if when in doubt, just remember she's the woman who over delivers. She's an over deliverer.
And here's an
Yeah.
over delivery. So it's coming out depending when this hits the air. My AI visibility guide for experts will be hitting. It's a 24-page guide on how to be the expert AI recommends. And that's a whole nother subject and ball of wax I won't get into. But for speakers who are looking to get booked, people and meeting planners, they're going to AI and asking. So I have this entire framework, entire guide that's about to hit the presses on my website that you can go and download. So I can put a link in the show notes, and that way you have something even more from me.
Perfect. Perfect. You're over delivering again. Will you stop with the over delivery? My goodness. All right, listen. We had a great talk 2 3 months ago. I knew you'd come in here and knock him dead, and you did. Very grateful to have had the conversation, and thanks. You could hear there are a few areas where I've got to take notes and I got to pay attention, and you're getting it from a guy who's got 3 million in the air and been doing that. If I'm taking notes, folks, you needed to be too. And the nice thing about a podcast is you can play it back and get the other pieces that you missed. Anyway, thank you so much for being on. Been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Rob. The pleasure is all mine.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.